5. Yep. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Town of Dudley Planning Board meeting to order. This evening we don't have a quorum. We only have 2 members present, so we're basically just going to have this as an informational meeting for the people that are here. And basically this meeting was called after our last regularly scheduled meeting last Wednesday, when we were presented information about the Tobin Farms subdivision, basically the money that was left in escrow and how much work was left to be done at the subdivision and the differences that are basically in between. I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday night to advise them as to what the situation was. The problem we have is the planning board only approves a subdivision, and we have the right to waive certain things in a subdivision, and our engineer will come out and inspect it at the end and give his stamp of approval as to whether it's done or not, or if it's what else needs to be done or what could be done better. But the final issue that I think everybody wants to get to is they want to have the road accepted in the town to take it over and to get town services of plowing and sanding. That has to go through the Board of Selectmen. They are the highway commissioners for the town of Dudley. And if you don't know, we do have, unfortunately, many completed subdivisions in the town of Dudley that have never been accepted by the town. I can name you 4 of them off the top of my head. And unfortunately, these subdivisions, all to my knowledge, at one time or another, were completed, were approved by the planning board, but have yet to be accepted by the town due to some reason or another with the Board of Selectmen. Now, the Board of Selectmen doesn't have their own engineer to review these things and give them weigh in on it or give them advice, so they depend on the highway commissioner. So our local highway commissioner is Danny Guyon. He was at the meeting on Monday night, so now he's aware of the situation and what's going on and what we need to do. And the board was basically, receptive to working with the developer and the contractor to get things done and move the project along. The situation I think that we're going to have is, at this point in time, when I talk to the Board of Selectmen about waiving things, they're nervous about us starting off with a lot of waivers from the standpoint of it opens up the town. It could be setting precedents for the other subdivisions that have already been done and that are out there. So they asked that we not waive anything at this point until Danny has a chance to review everything, sees what's going on. And I think what may need to happen is, we may need to get creative with some of the things. I know I said at the last meeting I had my opinion on whether or not the last 1.5 detention basins needed to be built. Again, my reason on thinking on that is you've all lived there for numbers of years. If there was a stormwater retention problem in the neighborhood, I think we would have heard about it from the neighbors long before now. So maybe that's something that could be looked at, and the town engineer could weigh in, and the highway superintendent could have a look and weigh in on that also. The other 2 things that seemed to jump out at me that needed, the other 3 things that I thought needed to be done in some way, shape, or form was the meets and bounds need to be installed, because the town has to know what they're accepting for land from the subdivision or from the contractors, because you all have your own parcels of land. The meets and bounds that get installed basically define the straight portions of the road and the curves in the road, and in a perfect world it's approximately 15 feet on either side of the road, but subdivisions always don't get built exactly where they're supposed to be, so it could be 10 feet on one side of the road and 20 feet on another side of the road. But the meets and bounds are important to be installed so that the town knows where they are, and that once they accept the road, there's a clear definition as to where the property boundary lines with the homeowners are and the town begins. Another thing that I looked at on the list was an as-built plan. After all the work is done, typically what happens is an engineer will go out, survey everything. That's when they'll define the meets and bounds of where everything should be, and they'll draw up a plan describing everything as it is, as built. So if there was a catch basin that was supposed to be 24 feet from the center of the road and it's 29 feet from the center of the road, they're going to put that on the plan so that we'll know that that catch basin's 5 feet out of location. And that plan is what is used by the town to file at the Registry of Deeds to actually take ownership of the subdivision, roads and roads, streets, ways, whatever you want to call it. So that's important that there be some funding for that. Now, I do know that there's an escrow account with the town that is for former Valgo projects that, when I looked in it online, had about $13,000 in funds in that. But I believe some of that money may have already been spent for town engineers review. But there should be probably in that account enough money to pay for the as-built plan. The last thing that came up was the sidewalks. And I don't have a set of plans in front of me as to what was approved for sidewalks in that subdivision, but I went out there Tuesday night or Monday night and measured some of the sidewalks, and I was measuring sidewalks in that subdivision from 6.5 feet to 4.5 feet in width. I don't know what they were proposed at. Our typical subdivision control law is 5 feet. Yeah, it's a 5-foot sidewalk is typical. And it's usually 4 inches of pavement and 6 inches of gravel underneath. Now, you know, in good faith and working with the developer and the contractor, you know, maybe we're going to have to get creative with some of this stuff. You know, we have waived down sizes of sidewalks in other subdivisions with you know, no problems in the past. So I believe, from what I could read about online, Americans with Disabilities Act says that a 4-foot sidewalk is adequate access for anybody that's in a wheelchair or handicapped. So if the sidewalk was supposed to be 5 feet and 4 feet's going to fit the bill, I think that's a waiver that could easily be looked at. Another thing that I looked at is that obviously the people who live in Phase 2 have a much newer binder course down on the roadway than the people who live in Phase 1. Maybe it's possible that when they pave Phase 2, instead of putting 2 more inches of top coat on, they only put 1.5 inches top coat on Phase 2, and they use the additional asphalt material to pave the sidewalks. I looked at the letter that was received by the contractor. It was stating like 2,200 feet of sidewalk. I looked at the plan and went out there. I think it's more like around 1,000 feet of sidewalk. It has to go from the wetland crossing on Tobin Drive, around the back of Stebbins Drives, and then back up to the wetland crossing again over towards Nelly's Way. And I didn't have the plan with me, but looking at the plan...
There's 2,200 feet.
You think that's 2,200 feet? Because when I added up...
Because it goes down Stebbins Drive, is that? Going down towards this little White House? On the right side of the road?
No, you only have to put sidewalks on the inner loop, Dickie. That was what the plan said.
But it shows on the plan that it does, that sidewalk did go down Stebbins Drive from the intersection of Tobin to the end, to the cul-de-sac on Nelly's. It does show that on the plan.
Okay.
At least the plan that I've got.
All right. Well, obviously I don't have a plan in front of me, but we can take a look at that. And so basically I wanted to have this meeting tonight so all of you understood what was happening and what's going on. I mean, again, the Board of Selectmen is willing to work with the developer, the contractor, and the homeowners, obviously. But what I didn't want to see is I didn't want to see the planning board to grant a bunch of waivers and then you guys run into a brick wall when you get to the Board of Selectmen. I want to make sure that they're on board with what we're going to do up front and have it be a smooth transaction all the way through versus, you know, we give whatever's necessary now and then, you know, you find out 3 months down the road that the Board of Selectmen is not going to accept the road or they want something different than what was done. So my advice to the developer and the contractor would be to, you know, have a meeting with the highway superintendent, see if you can get him out there. He said he hasn't been out there in a long time. So.
Came out there today. I got him out there today.
Okay, so have him get out there, have him look around, and just put your heads together with what you could do. Because like I said, you know, if it's waving, you know, maybe it's not waving the sidewalks altogether. Maybe it's just paring them down, making them smaller, making them thinner, whatever, or reducing the number. I don't remember there being sidewalks all the way down to the cul-de-sacs, but if that's the case, you know, I thought the original intent was, when I was back on the board at that time, was the inner loop of Phase 1 and Phase 2, and then the other inner loop from Oxford Dudley Road, Tobin Drive, and Nellie's Way. So and most of those are already in. So from what I looked at last night, I would say from the estimate that I had, I would think about 1,000 feet more was what was necessary. And I don't know if there's provisions in the retaining walls that go across the wetlands to provide for sidewalk access. If it wasn't there, then I would just say you put a ramp out to the road and put another ramp back in on the other side of the access and continue it around, you know, to make it as best as possible.
Mr. Chairman, the access is there
Okay.
behind the guardrail to that wall, but on those unfinished walls, which are going to be finished, there is no fence going up on that wall because we've only got so much money here to work with.
Right.
You know, is it stipulated what we've got lined out here, and I don't know if you read it, you know, as far as those 21 issues that the town engineer had.
Right.
You know, did I answer the questions too?
Yep.
You know, there was some stuff in there that is just, the money isn't there for. You know?
Right. I mean, I know like the $91,000 for the other 1.5 stormwater retention basins is probably not, you can't work around that much money. But I mean, I think if it's coming down to $10,000 or $20,000 for sidewalks, you could probably figure a way around that.
Just like you said, you could put an 1.5 inch of top course on the other road, but that wasn't discussed today with myself and the highway superintendent, you know, who came out there.
Yeah.
You know, basically what I said here at the meeting last week, as far as what we had for paving numbers, what we had to finish those walls, which have to be done. The stuff that basically has to be done, all the structures have got to be raised so they can have a road that is usable. Even though it's usable now, it's not done.
Right.
You know, and that's all the money there is for, you know, other than that drainage, other than Dudley Oxford Road, which is going to be done. You know, even though there's 21 issues, according to the town engineer's letter to you, my answers to those 21, you know, are listed here. You're going to see a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 of those 21 items are kind of redundant because he's got raising the structures in both Phase 1 and then raising the structures in Phase 2 is two different questions, which becomes, we're raising them when we're doing the pavement, you know, so it's just, I don't want to make it sound like there's 21 issues, you know.
No, I think, honestly, I think it's going to come down to probably about 3 or 4 issues, the ones that I just previously outlined. I think that's probably what it's going to come down to. I mean, I don't know how you get around a $91,000 shortfall on stormwater retention, but again, if honestly, in my opinion, if there was a problem there, we would have known about it long before.
The water's running now.
Right.
That's the way I look at it, and I'm not sitting in your seat.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. That's somebody else's decision to make. That's not mine. You know, I'm here just to do what we're able to do.
Right. But do you have intentions of talking with the highway superintendent again tomorrow, or?
Him and I were out there today for 45 minutes.
Okay.
You know, when like he said with the stormwater basins, he says they don't maintain them anyway.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm not trying to put words in Danny's mouth, but it's, you know, the sidewalks was another thing. You know, do they want them? No. I mean, but that's not my choice.
Right.
You know, I mean, I can't waive them. I'm here to do what we can do, and that's it.
So the other thing that was discussed with the Board of Selectmen on Monday night is they've basically taken all the information that I've given them, that you've given them, and they've forwarded this off to the town attorney. He's going to look into the possibility of calling the letter of credit that was given to the town back when the subdivision was approved, and see if there's a possibility of getting any money from the bank that at one time upheld the letter of credit, or finding out what other legal ways the town have of trying to get the subdivision finished with the least amount of waivers, or their biggest, like I said, their biggest fear is that we set a precedence here with this subdivision, and we already got 4 other ones that are supposedly complete but not accepted, they're all going to run in and say, you know, we want everything waived.
What are those subdivisions, just for curiosity?
Those other subdivisions would be Dave's Way off of 197, Partridge Road off of Southbridge Road, Partridge Hill Road, I think it is. Paul Lane Circle Drive, which is over here behind George Street. And the fourth one would be Eisenhower Drive, which is off of Lyons Road over by the courthouse. Those subdivisions are all complete, but the developers are all still maintaining the roads and plowing them themselves, with the exceptions of Paul Lane and Circle Drive. The developer after that subdivision, I believe, was originally started in '74, I think it was, and the developer has just basically walked away. He's been maintaining it since 1974 and decided that he's had enough. So the town is now plowing it when it's an emergency for the people to get in and out. So, but those people all lived there since the time the houses were built new, a lot of them, and they've all paid taxes like yourself, but they're not getting any town services. So it's not a good situation. And again, that's what I wanted to try to avoid with yourselves. I didn't want to make it easy to get to the finish line, only to be told that you can't cross it. So I wanted to be up front with the Board of Selectmen, because like I said, we can waive anything, but if the Board of Selectmen refuses to accept it at the end, it does you no good. So I want to try to work with them and their highway superintendent to come up with a workable solution for everybody involved. And that's where we are right now. So if Dickie, if you had him out there today and he got a view of it, you know, I would say, you know, maybe give him a day, or if you want to, talk to him tomorrow and start making some suggestions. And if you need, you know, any other suggestions, you know, we can give you some ideas. But, you know, like I said, size, width, thickness of sidewalks, they've all been waived at some point in time. You know, can you do an 1.5 inch top coat in the back to save the money on the asphalt? You know, I don't know how good Phase 2 base coat is. I got to imagine it's better than Phase 1.
The base coat, believe it or not, is one area that's a little checked up, but don't forget we're putting a tack coat on that.
Yeah.
So like the town engineer said too, the tack coat's going to hold that together. And where you're putting 2 inches of top on that road, with the amount of traffic that's there, I mean, all the people that live in Phase 2 are sitting right here, so there's not a lot of traffic on that road. You know, Danny and I were talking about it today. I mean, you're going to get 20 years out of that top coat. You know, it's just like I said, these people here are going to look for closure at some point. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not the closure point. I'm here just to I'm trying to help them out.
Right.
I'm doing a favor for somebody, and that's all I'm here for, you know.
Right.
But it seems like I'm heading more and more and more in the direction of meeting with more and more boards, I guess.
Well, I mean, like I said, we're willing to do whatever's necessary to get it approved from the planning board side. I can't speak for everybody on the board, but, you know, I think everybody on the board's been here at one time. I can tell you from my own personal standpoint, I have been. I'm on the planning board because I bought a house in Dudley, and it took 10 years for my road to get finished. That's why I'm on the planning board. So I know exactly what you're going through. I lived on a road that had no town services for 10 years. I got up in the morning and snowblowed the road to go to work. And, you know, I don't think anybody should have to do that, especially when you pay taxes. And I think if you buy a house in a subdivision, you know, you're buying it in good faith, and you intend it at some point in time that the road's going to be finished, accepted by the town, and you're going to get your town services. But for some reason in Dudley, it seems to take a lot longer than it should, unfortunately.
Do you have any questions as far as the answers I gave you to the questions that were written by the town engineer?
No, I mean, I thought they were all good, straightforward. Like I said, I think you know, the meets and bounds being installed is very important. I mean,
you're talking the bound markers.
Yeah, the concrete or the granite pillars, whatever they use to put in there. I think concrete pillars would probably be cheaper than the granite ones, but I mean, as long as there's something there, they can't just have a pipe banged into the ground, because that gets run over or bent, or, you know, something. These granite or concrete markers are a lot more substantial.
Yeah, the bounds, just so everybody's clear, the bounds that they're talking about are only to define the layout of the road. They're not to define your house lot All that they are is to define where that road is laid out,
You're talking just phase 2 or phase 1?
both phases.
No, why would phase 1 be like off when the curve is already in and everything's already
Could it be off? Yes. I mean-
these guys accepted phase 1, am I correct?
No.
None of it's been
None
accepted.
of it's accepted.
On the plan itself?
No, what-
The plans that were submitted were approved for construction, but none of the subdivision has been accepted as of yet.
What was,
Right, okay.
what was accepted was the lot releases.
Right.
Okay, they gave, according to the Form H we have here in town, you can correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
you have to do A, B, C, D, or, to a point to where they will issue the contractor a building permit for your lot.
Right.
At that point, there's money in an escrow account or a letter of credit, that's been accepted by the planning board, by the selectmen, whoever. Now, that money that's in escrow or in a letter of credit is supposed to be held till the subdivision is completed. Then the developer or contractor, whoever it is, goes back to the planning board, and then they release that money that's held in escrow saying, yes, your subdivision is complete. We have an as-built plan, we have everything they're asking for. They get their money back. If not, this is what happens.
And for the people that are here, if they don't know the situation with the subdivision that you live in, basically what happened with that subdivision was it was originally approved, the whole subdivision was approved. Phase 1 started. Close to the end of Phase 1, there was a question that arose with water and sewer pipes in the subdivision because the sewer pipe main is about 1,500 feet from the entrance of Wayne Ave, I think it was. Wayne Ave, right across the street from Tobin Drive. There was a sewer connection there, and the planning board at the time, I can't remember if I was on it or not on it, but I remember being at the meeting, had an agreement, basically a verbal agreement with the developers that they wouldn't pipe Phase 1, put in what they call dry pipes, basically pipes in the ground, so if any of your septic systems should ever fail, you could easily hook up to the sewer that's available, the municipal sewer in the town of Dudley. So the agreement was made that Phase 1 would not have the dry pipes, but Phase 2 would have the dry pipes. And then immediately after that agreement was made, the developers sued the town, and that lawsuit took the better part of 4 to 5 years. And all during that time, they were still working in Phase 2 and finishing it up. And I can show you written correspondence at many times when the town had requested from the developers that we wanted a different surety than a letter of credit. It never came through, and it wasn't pushed by the town attorney at the time because they were afraid that we would be considered, that action would be considered retaliation by the town for them filing the lawsuit against the town. So basically, the town walked on eggshells for 5 years until it was done. And then at the end, here we are. You guys all are homeowners, and you have no dry pipes in Phase 2 because the lawsuit was settled out of court with no pipes, and the town has no surety. That's how we got to where we are.
There was a cease and desist on my house in Phase 1, and they had sold it to me.
Because of that, yeah. Yeah. So, it was a long road to get where you are, but unfortunately, that's where we are right now.
What wall are you talking about?
The two on the wetlands crossings, one on
By his house?
Tobin, one on, what's the other road?
Both of them? Both of them.
What's that, Nellie's Way? No, Nellie's is
Sunny.
one Paul.
Sunny.
What is it? Summer. Summer.
Okay.
What? Okay.
All right, so like I said, I would get in touch again with Danny and start just, trying to come up with some ideas. The Board of Selectmen will have another meeting, I believe, in not this next Monday coming up, but the following Monday. And we have a meeting next Wednesday So if you guys had some ideas by next Wednesday and you wanted to run them by the planning board, like I said, I think we're going to be more than accommodating to the point that we can be with the Board of Selectmen. And, get your ideas and, down on paper, I would say. Have Danny review them. I think it's important that Danny's on board with what you want to do. And, come to the Board of Selectmen meetings, make the proposal. I'll gladly come to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. If you want to run it by the planning board first, and we can take a vote on it to endorse it from the planning board and then go to the Board of Selectmen, that's fine with us. I don't think any of us would have a problem doing that at the next meeting, which is next Wednesday. And then the following Monday would be the Board of Selectmen's meeting, so if you want to do that.
Is it possible that they'll accept the road at that meeting, or does it take?
No, it's going to take a town meeting to accept the road.
Right, at the next time, selectmen meeting. Is it possible that it'll be decided then, or does it take longer than that?
It won't be decided then.
I hope that.
Worst case scenario.
I hope it does.
Well, no,
I hope it would be, but
if it, let's say if it does get accepted, what is the worst case scenario? Are we looking into winter or not?
they cannot accept the road at any town meeting but the annual one, which is in May. So you are going to hold your own during the winter, but it is very important for you as homeowners to make sure you do go to the selectmen's meeting to make sure, well, you know, push this along if you want to get it accepted.
And there is a possibility if the road is all paved and in good shape, and the town has no fear of like equipment failure going to plow the road. Like they're not going to break all their plows trying to plow the roads with the raised structures or the bumps in the road. There is a possibility that the town would help out with this year's snow removal, depending on what the year's like. If we have a banner snow year, then they may come or they may not come. But if we have an average normal snow year, they could fit it in. I can't speak for the highway department, but that's what they are agreed to right now with Paula Lane and Circle Drive. That if there's a state of, not a state of an emergency, but if for some reason that road up there doesn't get plowed and the people can't get in and get out, they can call the selectman's office and they'll send the highway department over to plow the road. So they could probably set something up like that for you to get you through this winter. But I mean, I think it's important that if the money's there to get the paving done and the structures raised, that's 90% of what you need to get done. So I would say you want to get that done.
Just so you know, Danny was out there today when I got a crew out there. I actually got two crews out there raising those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one crew raising structures, one crew trying to locate them.
Okay.
So we raised like 30, we rebuilt and raised 32 of them today. Since I stole this crew from a friend of mine, we're not going to be working there tomorrow. A couple of my guys will be, but we're not going to be raising structures. They're coming back out on Friday, and I'll probably do another 30 Friday, but there's 82 total, and I'm trying to squeeze them to get them and see if I can get them Saturday so I can get these structures raised by the weekend. Mm-hmm. Because the following week I would like to get in there, put the berms down, and pave that road.
Did the highway superintendent take a look at the work they were doing with the raising of the structures? Did he see that?
Excuse me, guys?
Did the highway superintendent see the work that they were doing?
Yes, absolutely.
So he was happy with that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
because he made mention of previous subdivisions that hadn't held up as well. Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Well aware of that.
yeah, okay. Well, I think you're on the right road, no pun intended, but to get where you want to be. But like I said, the out and out just waiving of everything that's on the list, I think we need to look at some creative ways of possibly getting it to the point where we're, the meets and bounds, the meets and the bounds, the as-built plan, and the sidewalks in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's like I said, even if it's a reduced sidewalk in size and thickness. And even if it's reduced and that it only goes partway through phase 2, I think that would meet the intent of what was approved. I mean, nothing ever gets built exactly the way it's approved in the first place. So there's always some negotiations or give and take at the end of a subdivision. You can try to build one exactly to print, but I don't think I've ever seen one come out exactly right yet. So there's always something at the end that needs to be waived. to some extent.
Now, the sidewalk is with the Disabilities Act, correct? That's the reason.
That's the main reason, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the bylaw states that we're supposed to have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and it's been a custom since I've been on the board in 2001 that most developers that come to town ask for waiving of sidewalks on one side of the street so that they only have to put in half as much sidewalk. And that was waived on this development, this subdivision. So, I mean, I think right now what you got is about 60% of half of the sidewalks done. You need to just build the other 40%, and that would be it. And like I said, you know, some of the sidewalks that I measured out there the other night, towards the end of Tobin Drive, towards the end of Nelly's Way, those sidewalks are upwards of 6.5 feet wide. That's a pretty wide sidewalk. Our standard is 5 feet. So, but there was some areas that I measured that were only 4.5 feet wide. But that's you know, based on what I saw, it's probably all working out to 5 feet in the average. So. But, I mean, there's no reason why in Phase 2 in the back, if it ended up being 4 feet or 3.5 feet, whatever, I think, you know, that's doable for, you know, at least there's something there, you know. And it gives the town something to work with for the future. I mean, what they want to try to avoid, I don't know if you've seen it, but, you know, what they're trying to avoid is, you know, you got situations like Mason Road where there's a school on it and there's no sidewalks. The kids are walking down both sides of the street. That's not good for anybody. So, not that there'll ever be a school at your neighborhood, but, you know, ultimately, you hope one day the school bus will go around your neighborhood and pick the kids up and they don't have to walk to the corner every day. So,
I just have a question. Is, according your Form H's that have been signed off on what has been done there so far?
we don't hold them, the developer does. We may have a copy of one that was approved previously.
Yes, that's what could Nancy just get me a copy of what she has was,
We can ask,
okay.
or I can look. But it's actually the Form H is the up until the final approval, the Form H is the responsibility of the developer. So I would hope that the developer would have his last Form H.
I don't know that.
Okay. Well, we can see what we have on file, but
But
we
I'm
don't.
going to get a Form H from Nancy here, which, well, I can download one offline, but
Right.
because Dennis is, not Dennis,
Jeff,
Jeff is going to be coming out to do the inspections for
the catch basins.
all the structures, all the castings that are raised, and he's got some questions about pipe, which I already confirmed in here that we, the pipes were changed, thank God. But he's just gonna come out, make sure the castings are done, and he's gonna come out. I need him to come out to do the day we're gonna pave, because he's gonna have to confirm that the tack coat went down, and then he's gonna confirm temperature and all of the asphalt, and depth of the asphalt.
Right.
So some of that money that's in your account there is gonna go towards his inspection fees,
Yep. Yeah, he's $150 an hour, plus travel time.
Wish there was more, but there isn't. So
Right,
that's-
does any of the homeowners have any questions? I mean, I think it's imperative that you can come up and ask your question, but I think it's imperative that you, it's okay.
So I live on Stebbins, the very tail end near the cul-de-sac. And I noticed, and I'm not sure, I apologize, I wasn't in the last couple meetings, but there's all these like little circles and rectangles and. Is that
Those-
what you're talking about? The
Yes,
structures?
those are the structures that are buried in the ground there that were never exposed.
Okay.
Typically, when you build a subdivision like that, that's what we do, because we put the binder down first. Because if you put all those structures to grade and you try to pave a road nice and, flat, the way it's supposed to be, whenever you hit those structures, the paver goes this way, and you end up with these big variations.
Okay.
So what typically you do is you do put the structures in the ground, you put a steel plate over them, then put the binder coats down. Then you go back in there, jackhammer up those little square circles you see, and raise the structure up to grade. Pour concrete around it, then put the top coat to that.
structures are just gonna be there to allow the water?
Those are all drainage
Where do
structures.
they drain to?
Stebbins Drive drains down to detention basin 3, which is non-existent, but it's down at the end of the cul-de-sac of Stebbins.
Yeah. And then there looks like there's a big pipe next to the lot.
There's another detention basin in Mr. Tigas's yard,
Okay.
and then there's one in your yard, which is complete. All those little circles are gonna have nice little holes in them,
Okay.
like that they go.
Because there's a lot of water next to, I guess it's where Tobin meets, there's that one bridge that always fills up
Yeah.
with ice and water.
Yeah, well, that's because the grading there is not right, because the structure is higher than what the binder is now. So what's happening is you end up with 2 or 3 inches of water in there, because water's gonna come up 2 or 3 inches before it'll go in that
Okay.
structure that's there now.
And then the same at the cul-de-sac, so at the end of the cul-de-sac,
Correct.
the boys live,
That's
it's the
correct.
same issue over there, so.
Same thing, but that'll all be corrected once we raise the, what's buried in the ground and once we raise it up.
Thank you.
Okay. So like I said, I think it's important that all yous, people that are here tonight attend the next Board of Selectmen's meeting so that they see that there's solidarity in numbers.
What if they can't come up with the money to do sidewalks?
Like I said, maybe we end up, right now, the direction I got from the Board of Selectmen was don't waive anything until we see what the bond or what the letter of credit has to say. And then the other thing is what legal rights the town has from a legal standpoint. What can the town do? I mean, I know in some cases they've attached people's property, developers' property, other property that hasn't been used or sold or built on. Unfortunately, in that subdivision, I believe all the property has been sold and is now in hands of individual owners, but there may be other property. So, they can look at that. But that's up to the town attorney, town council will handle that part of it. But I was hoping that we had some feedback from him already for this meeting, but the wheels of progress don't seem to turn that fast.
From the attorney?
From the attorney, yeah. No.
I got a question real quick. Now, when people start subdivisions, okay, they come up with a note, okay, bond, okay, and that bond is just in case something like this happens, correct?
Right.
That money will go to the town, and the town will finish it. First part of the question, why wasn't there a bond? The second question is, do you see this letter, like this credit, normal for other subdivisions?
No, it's not. It's no longer a common practice to accept a letter of credit. When this subdivision was approved back in 2001, 2002, letter of credits were kind of on their way out. But this was like the last subdivision in Dudley that was allowed with a letter of credit. There's other things that are similar to a letter of credit. It's called a tri-party agreement, where there's a bank involved, there's a developer involved, and it's the town involved. That's similar to a letter of credit, but it also has more financial teeth, so to speak, as where you're not dealing with just a bank. You're dealing with the developer, and the developer puts up something for collateral, so to speak, in the tri-party agreement versus just the bank giving you a letter of credit.
So this is just like a bond?
A tri-party agreement is
So what's this right now, like without our credit?
your letter of credit is not like a bond. The reason why letter of credit stopped being a acceptable practice was back in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of the banks went under, the smaller banks went under. There were lots of subdivisions that were approved with letters of credits from these small banks, and the banks went under, and then the towns all got stuck with subdivisions that couldn't be completed. So we had another one in Dudley prior to that. I think that's still technically incomplete. It's Misty Meadows. It's out by Misty Meadow Drive, is it, or Misty Meadow Lane? That subdivision was built with a letter of credit, and the developer went bankrupt, and the town sat on that for a very long time, and then another developer came and bought it and built on it. But I still even think to this day it's not really complete. So But I don't,
I got a question, not to beat a dead horse in this bond, but we brought this issue to you guys before phase 2 started. And we said, we were worried then, which I'm assuming is probably 7 years ago, maybe 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And the whole board said, there's a bond in place, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Well, this is what we got.
okay.
Because we believe the board.
I don't know if I was on the board at that time, but if I was, I wouldn't have told you there was a bond in place, because I've known since day one there's no bond.
How much would a bond be for something like this nowadays? About 150,000?
No, it's usually 25% of what the total cost of the subdivision is. So, I mean, something like that.
Cost of the roads,
So-
25%. Be a
Yeah.
lot of money.
I mean, it could be upwards of $500,000, a bond.
So the bond just basically covers the pavement?
The bond covers what.
If you get a bond from a bonding company, it covers what's stated in that bond. If it says it's covering that road in its entirety and there's a plan on file, that bond is covering that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, last September, I was on this board last September, and the developer came with his attorney, and that was when he had the last lot sold. And it was very imperative that we give them a lot release that night so they could do the deal, and we were told that there was going to be $90,000 from that sale of that lot put into an escrow account. We also asked that attorney to give us a full accounting of the escrow account and what the situation was. We never got that. And up until last week, we had no idea that there would be a shortfall as far as the monies go. We were led to believe that there was enough money to finish the subdivision according to the plan that was approved up until last week.
So you're telling me that 90,000 isn't in this?
Yes, it is.
I don't know where that 90,000 went. We asked for an accounting, we never got it.
But you released a lot, you hadn't gotten an accounting?
The deal was pending that night. The deal was, they had to make the deal. The attorney was going on holiday, and it was basically make the deal now, or there may not be any money in the account for that last lot. So we took it on good faith that they would finish the last lot. I mean, you wouldn't get more than $90,000 for that lot today, even if we held it. So we might, even with the situation today, you could probably get less because land has gone down. But at the time we took it in good faith. The attorney was here. He told us on public television that we would have an accounting by the next week. We never got it. We also asked that attorney to come back for this last meeting. He didn't show up.
Last week?
Last week. He was requested multiple times to come, and we were told that he would be here last week. He didn't show up. So,
I show up.
I know, you did, Dick.
So I have a question on, you mentioned, you said something about worst case scenario, like we have to get through the winter again. And is there something, you stated there may be something in place for emergency situations? Because we ran into that last year, and I got no help at all, and after days and days of calling. So my family, my wife is disabled, and I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she couldn't get her medicine delivered, couldn't get heating, propane delivered, and no one came. I called the highway department. I asked them as a civil servant myself, I'm a Webster police officer, got nothing. And I talked to the secretary, and then I eventually talked to the town manager at the time.
Well, I think you need to go to the next Board of Selectmen meeting and tell that very same story.
And I totally declared that this was an emergency situation where we needed some help. And I was told, they were told not to go on that road.
Yeah. Well,
So I spent 4 days without being able to get heating, propane, and medicine.
right. Yeah, I think you need to tell that story at the next meeting and let them know. But I think you're going to be in a much better situation this year if the road ends up getting paved and everything gets fixed, as far as the town not being afraid to break their equipment going down there.
Yep.
Because if they do, I mean, if a truck gets broken and they can't, that's one truck they're down, that puts a big pinch on everybody else in town too. So I think you'd be in a better situation once the road is completed and paved and the catch basins are where they need to be, so you're not having ice and water build up on the road. It should be a better situation. But I think it's the best thing you can do is have as much communication as you can with the Board of Selectmen, because right now they're basically holding all the cards.
Dickie, what is the integrity of a road if you skim it 1.5 inches as opposed to 2 inches on sidewalks? With the sidewalks heat? I mean, we
Most
don't want to
roads-
put sidewalks in if they're not.
Most roads that were built up until 15 years ago, maybe not even that long ago, were only 3 inches of pavement. Then you got
And what about
4.5 inches. Sidewalks typically 2.5 inches.
2.5?
I've got them where they've been 1 inch, down to the required 1 inch.
They last?
No.
Nothing lasts
But
forever.
sidewalks, and sidewalks to me are nothing but, as far as the town maintenance goes, are nothing but a headache for a town to maintain. They are. I mean, I love sidewalks, don't get me wrong, but as far as a maintenance perspective, they're a nightmare for our highway department.
Well, why would are they required to do the
When,
sidewalks?
no, you are required, but if something goes wrong with that sidewalk, something the town's gonna fix, it's in the taking.
Because there's only 2 houses on that inner loop
Yeah,
that would be serviced.
yeah, there's 2 houses in a vacant lot, basically, that the sidewalk would go in front of. Yeah, and I honestly thought that that's all that was required on the plan, but I'll take a look at the plan again.
So that
I will too.
the sidewalks in front of those 2 houses could hold up the whole development?
From being approved, yeah, if that's what's required, yeah.
Past is past, we should move forward.
That's what you need to express.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, I totally understand where you're coming from. Like I said, I had to live with it for 10
He
years.
lived it too.
That's why I'm here. So I'm trying to help you as much as I can. And I think the whole board would be willing to help you as much as we can. But, you know, the gatekeeper, so to speak, is going to be the Board of Selectmen and the highway superintendent. So basically, I think if you get the highway superintendent satisfied, the Board of Selectmen will be satisfied. They're going to listen to him because he's their knowledge in the field of what they're looking at. So, you know, if he says everything's done, complete, it's a good job, and he's willing to accept it and take responsibility for it, then they should have no problem. But it's to get to that point where he's happy and everything's okay.
Any other questions, Ron?
So a week from Monday.
Do your best to get there.
Yeah,
Do your best to get there.
Oh, selectmen's meeting?
yeah. It won't be this coming Monday. It'll be the following Monday, and we'll have another planning board meeting next Wednesday, a week from tonight.
Oh, you are scheduled for next
Yeah.
week? Okay.
Yeah, this was a special meeting in between. So like I said, if you have any more news to report next Wednesday, come on by and let us know what
Okay.
the situation is. And then I don't think it would be a bad idea for the rest of the board members to hear it all, because we've had 2 members out at least in each meeting. So, and then it can all be brought up to speed. All right?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.